Hello everyone. These are the notes for Chapter 17, Section 5, called Absolute Monarchy in Russia. Now there are two main characters in this section, Peter the Great and Catherine the Great. What we'll do is we'll start with Peter the Great first and then move to Catherine the Great. So let's start with Peter the Great. First off the bat, the name Tsar is a title used in Russia it means Caesar. In Russian, it's called Tsar, C-Z-A-R, Tsar. So this would be Tsar Peter the Great. Tsar Nicholas you may have heard of before as well. So Tsar is a title. So the first one is Peter the Great. Now he ruled from 1689 to 1725. I'll never ask you those dates, but those are his dates in which he reigned. In other words, he was in power. Now, some of the background for Peter the Great. He was born in 1672, and he died in 1725 while he was Tsar of Russia. He was between, get this, 6'8" and 7'2". So 6 feet 8 inches, or in between 7 feet 2 inches tall. So he was a giant among people in Russia at this time. His last name is Romanov, and the spelling is right there, Romanov, just like Henry Tudor. It was Henry VIII, his last name was Tudor. In this case, it was Peter Romanov. At 10 years old, he came to power, so he was very young. But he really took over power around when he was 17 years old. He was just too young to make decisions beforehand, even though he was in power. He saw that Russia needed to modernize and to be more like Western European countries. So what he did was, he loved the West, he loved Europe, and he visited there quite frequently, these European cities himself. And so he came back and wanted to make changes and reforms in Russia based upon his adventures in Europe. Peter became an autocrat. An autocrat is a ruler who has complete control, called an autocrat as well. Now, these are the following autocratic policies of Peter the Great. He held all power in his hands. What he said went. Some of those powerful moves that he did was he moved the capital from Moscow to the Baltic Sea. In fact, where St. Petersburg is today. That was actually the capital at one time, St. Petersburg. He changed the Russian government to model European governments. He adopted what's called the Julian calendar. He was the first ruler in Russia to charge a tax on people to create revenue, money. Nobles and military officers actually, get this, revolted against him. They wanted more say in the government. And Peter, while being ruler, crushed this revolt. It's a sign of his power, a sign of his power. He made Russian men cut off their beards and wear new styles of clothing, worn specifically in Europe, because he wanted to mimic European fashion. Peter fought in war, get this, 34 out of the 36 years that he was in power. He reigned. So 36 years in power, 34 of them he was actually at war with one country or another. And during his reign, the serfs, those are the poor people that are tied to the land, just like in the Middle Ages, are bound tighter to the land, and they're almost seen as property as well. Now, also during his reign, there's something called expansion of Russia. During the time of Peter the Great, He opened up foreign trade. Russia opened up foreign trade and encouraged Europeans to come to Russia, actually. Also, he wanted to modernize the Russian army and navy to bring them up to par, up to speed with the European nations. He wanted to also modernize Russian society, such as building canals and roads and etc. there. He extended the Russian territory to establish a much-needed warm water port. A lot of northern Russia is either permafrost, frozen, or very cold in the wintertime. Therefore, a lot of these ports are frozen over. If you freeze over these ports, you can't have trade coming in via the ships. So therefore, he wanted to establish a warm water port in the south, if you will. And he was at war with Sweden as well, which was a big part of this. And he won that war, and he got parts of Finland and Estonia to bring into the Russian territory as well. So those are the notes just specifically on Peter the Great. Now it's on to Catherine the Great. Next up is Catherine the Great. She is referred to as Tsarina, the female version of Tsar, and she reigned from 1762 to 1796. Now some of the background information. She was born in 1729 and died in 1796. She was actually born in Germany, not in Russia, and she's a German princess. She married the heir to the Russian throne, Peter the Third. And Peter the Third, actually, history tells us, was kind of mentally unstable at this time, and he was actually murdered by Russian military officers. Now, legend has it also that at this time, his wife, Catherine, actually kind of knew about this and let it happen, the murder of her husband. And maybe to gain power. However, what happens after this is that she does become Tsarina, all of Russia. Very, very powerful. She's a patron of the arts. She invited many famous artists to Russia. And she also modeled the Russian court system after the French court system. Now, her autocratic policies, an autocrat, sole person in power, she pushed what's called Russification for the conquered people that she took over. In other words, you can see the word Russia a little bit in there. In other words, what would happen is these people would then have to start to speak Russian. They would have to learn Russian and speak it. These people that were conquered must join the Russian Orthodox Church, a Protestant church. They also must pledge loyalty to the crown, that is Catherine the Great. And Catherine also at this time gave small reforms to the nobles, that's the well-to-do people, landlords and intellectuals. But for the most part, most people in Russia were serfs, tied to the land. 34 million out of 36 million people at this time in Russia were serfs, tied to the land, really not educated, lived from day to day. And finally, the last part of these notes is the expansion of Russia. She continued to expand Russia herself, just like Peter the Great did. She took over parts of Poland and Finland. And with Poland, by 1795, Poland was invaded and was carved up by Austria, Russia, and Prussia. In fact, a side note is Poland would be wiped off the map, and it would not return until after World War I In 1918 with the Treaty of Versailles, Poland comes back to be an independent nation once again. She took parts of the South over for, once again, warm water ports. That was important. And she welcomed foreigners to Russia to see what's going on in this new Russia, into this new age, modern age of Russia. And those are the notes for this section, Chapter 17, Section 5. Once again, absolute monarchy in Russia. Take care. Thank you.